Welcome back to Melbourne Strength Cultures podcast, number one in the hearts, number one in the charts. We're here with a special guest, Paul Mackinnon, the Balanced Runner on Instagram. And for those loyal listeners who know the story about how Charlie and I ended up on a Lululemon hot air balloon, Paul was also on the hot air balloon. How'd you go on the balloon, mate?
The balloon, great. Yeah, it was.
How'd you end up on that balloon?
I was intrinsically involved with Lululemon at the time.
Yeah.
So I may as well have been the pilot, really.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we weren't too sure how we ended up on there.
I could see
Well, they wanted to diversify away from just being yoga in the men's space, I think.
Yeah.
They wanted some strength trainers. Then we were on there, we met you, and you started teaching us about all these new fandangle ways of running.
That is just one.
Wait, so you're on the hot air balloon?
Yeah, the hot air balloon.
Yeah, it was on the hot
air
air
balloon.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. No, it was. I told you want flight and float. You want to get up in the air. That's part of it.
That's the hack.
Yeah.
The hot air balloon.
No, it was good. It was a good day though. Like it was good fun morning.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We actually, I was saying on the pod, we just somehow got the conversation rolling on the potty a few weeks back. But I actually, after about an hour, I was like, all right,
Yeah.
You felt the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, all right, well,
Yeah, this is
cool.
good, but can we go down again?
Yeah, can we go back?
No, you still got another 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got another 2 hours on it.
You got there for 3 hours.
I can't remember.
I just remember it being ages.
3 hours?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing up there. Like, it's real still.
Yeah.
There's no air, there's no wind. And when the conversation's, it's just dead. Like, it's dead quiet.
There's a view.
And there's also, like, you're packed in like sardines. You got like 14 people in 6 square meters. So you just stand there. Look, I like the views, brilliant, but...
I don't know. Yeah.
What happens to the person in the centre?
And then you get smoothies at the end. I'm sure it was smoothies at the end or something.
I can't even remember.
Yeah, we went to Boosa.
Did we? Oh, we did too.
Yeah.
Yes, we did too. We did too. Fuck, your memory's good on that. But yeah, we just we were just down at the
Neural
park.
networks
So if
firing.
you're listening to this, the order of upload, you have to wait a few days, depending on when you listen to this. There will be a YouTube video of Paul helping out Charles,
The boys.
and
It was good.
Buzz.
It was really good.
What did you boys learn?
Efficiency.
Oh, man.
Culmination.
I learned
Running
that
efficiency.
how I was running before was fucking horrendous.
You're running
Jeez.
like a slug.
I like a slug. And I really like the way that Paul coaches because there's like some similarities. Not the whole. There's some depth to that, but we like to have people have the first set suck always, and then you highlight that. You let them make the mistakes and make them aware of the mistakes, and then from there, that's where we layer in the intervention. It's like, all right, maybe let's try this exercise. Oh, you feel that compared to how you felt there. All right, let's change that. And I really liked that, and there's a big chunk of it highlighting how shit our technique was. And it wasn't Paul saying it was shit. It was like, hey, you see that? Yeah. Anyway, we definitely saw it, and then with the technical tweaks, I was like, man, like this is...
Well, and that's just one tweak to start with. Like I thought we were going to go through 2 or 3, but I think one was enough.
How many
to start
tweaks
with.
I think we'd have to charge for that YouTube video.
Yeah, well, I think it's almost like behind the paywall.
We'll cut it down. We'll send you the...
How many tweaks have you got?
Everyone's a little bit different, so then the more you get into it, the more tweaks there can be. But it becomes... Sometimes I'll learn off some of my own athletes because they'll say, oh, I feel this or I feel like I'm doing this, because the better they get at that, their self-awareness, they can pick up their own things. Like, oh, fuck. Oh, yeah, it is there. And then that almost starts to become present in other athletes that you start to see. So then there's another cue and that sort of stuff. But, I mean, there's a core group of sort of about 15 to 18 that I work through, then the individual ones.
Yeah. So obviously I wasn't running, but I was just observing and listening and learning as well. Obviously today was a big focus on the upper body and like the arm swing and the direction of the arms and how that feeds into the lower body. Is that quite often where you would start improving?
Yeah. So I look at running completely flipped as, say, like a deadlift or a squat where I'm assuming, this is an assumption, is start with your feet position, because if you haven't got that right, then you can't do anything off that. So for me, I actually look at, the torso we spoke about being the most still or stationary portion. The only way I can get that is actually start by the arms. So everything is flipped. So you work from what should be most stationary in the best position, and then you can kind of feed out. but the arms influence that. So I have to start there before I can actually start to attack anything under. Whereas normally running is all about feet. How do you land? What's your leg movement?
Cadence.
Yeah, fuck. I start that.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, but feet and legs, without understanding that everything above the hips is actually influencing what you're trying to change. So it's almost impossible to change what you're trying to change without changing what's above it. So yeah, I really flipped the whole idea of where to start.
Yeah.
So it's just start point is the arms.
Yeah, and that's where we sort of ended up with you boys, because it actually made such a huge, especially you, Jamie. Like I was there and Paul was sort of telling me what was happening when small changes were happening. But with just the arm swing change with Jamie, it was literally just like a little bit more emphasis on where the elbows are sort of transitioning through. All of a sudden, your feet started longer strides. You pretty much
left the ground.
Yeah, you left the ground.
You had some
stride
famous
became
swing, some knee lift, famous swing.
Yeah, it was impressive to see how just one, and I guess you see it all the time with strength training and stuff, but one very small cue can all of a sudden change
the game.
Yeah.
What would be the next one for us?
Well, for you guys, it'd both be a little bit different. So, for you, it'd be framing up your torso or somewhere around the front portion, and for you, it'd be more about that lower back.
Yep.
That lower back, sacral, hip positioning, but as a result of that lower back and how it actually works in with thoracic. So, and then everyone's a little bit different. So, how you adapt to it and what that kind of uncovers next, and what sort of movements need more focusing on after that then each channel starts to take its own little path, and it might come back together at some point, but
everyone's journey's different.
And it's still just the body, like it's just the body in the ground. So there's going to be a lot of similarities here or there. So there's going to be some.
And you said, so now for us, like you'd go work, we've done that cue, the arms. You said 15 to 20 runs before you bring in the next cue. So you really want to drive that pattern in to becomes habitual, autonomous, and then bring in that second pattern.
Because it just makes it so much, it's almost impossible without doing it, that if you're still focusing on or worried about, what my arms are doing and making sure I'm swinging on the right line and from the right point without it being natural and autonomous, then you can't completely focus on the next piece. So I'd just sort of say it's a general rule that it's about that 15 to 20 runs. Some take more, some take less. Some cues take longer, some don't. And it's just kind of around that, and it's about giving that athlete the decision that when they're ready to go, because they know that they can completely focus on the next piece.
I feel like that's just good coaching. You see the coach every time he gives a 4, 5, 6 cues. It's like, chest up, ass out, fucking this, that. And then it's like the lifter like combusts every single time. Because that
overload.
It's like as much as I'm curious about what the next piece is and what that would look like for me with the running. It's like the difference I felt from that to that already. It's like I know that if I do 15 to 20 runs of that technique, I'm going to feel like a completely different person already.
Yeah.
But also from a mistake standpoint, like you saw my left arm like starting to drift out into this
straight away
different position. It's like, does it make sense for me to layer in something else if I haven't consolidated this pattern? So I think it's.
Well, you know what it's like. As soon as even if you're given two things, you're focusing on one. The one you're not focusing on isn't getting laid in. It's not being embedded. So if I give you two, I'm just doing myself a disservice as well, because it's like it's not going to help me go, oh, okay, well, it hasn't really picked up on it. And the next stage is, well, it doesn't really work. And that becomes how, like the process becomes to the athlete, because they're like, oh, it didn't really work. Gave me these two things. And it felt better. It felt really good, but it just doesn't adapt. Because, you're giving two different focal points and you're expecting them to become habitual. It doesn't work that way.
No, you give them no chance.
No.
Yeah,
you're set up to fail.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Jamie said, like there's a lot of mirrored sort of. It's just good. It's good coaching at the end of the day, as Jamie said. Yeah, it's so much of what we just witnessed and how you go about things would be like, oh, we'd probably hit this in the same way.
You'd have Just, it's a different subject matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're slamming it in the gym and you feel like you're just spinning your wheels at the moment, we've got our new training app, which is going to help with structure and adherence. You get access to 16 training programs. We're going to be updating the programs every month, giving you the flavor of strength culture and what we like, what we're working on at the moment. $59.95 a month, full access. Sign up now.
There were some commonalities. Let's just get straight into it. One person, Kingy, through the Discord, was asking what similarities do you see from like running technique and running application, but then that may also transition into lifting and in the gym and strength. And obviously we've chatted in the past about this sort of cylindrical position, ribs down, pelvis up is what we call it, but stacking the torso. That was even something that you touched on today. Do you want to just run through why that position helps running so much? So like ribs down.
Yeah, so I'd think more about like the ribs down and the spinal position rather than the actual hips, but the parallels definitely of that, the hips to rib cage for sure, because a strong position is a strong position, irrespective of the movement. Now, if you're doing it stationary, then you're going to be stacked up and down like vertically, whereas, we think about running, you're trying to push mass forward, so there's going to be slight change in the angles of those parallels, but the parallels you still want to have it like that cylindrical, because you can be stronger. So whilst running isn't a strength movement, it's bounding from one foot to another. So you want to have strength and be in a stronger position so that you're actually utilizing what can hold that strength and therefore stability. But the other part is breathing. Being in a position where you can actually have that full lung capacity rather than being extended through your thoracic and limiting lung capacity when oxygen is so key to running. Or just having your mass in a position that you can continually maintain forward momentum, whereas if it's up and down or behind and change through there, then you're really just trying to pull your mass forward rather than actually push your mass forward. And it changes the mechanics that you can use through your legs, through range of motion, through where you land. It has this knock-on effect all the way down that chain.
Yeah, because when we think about lifting, like squatting and deadlifting, we'd go from the core out pretty much all the time. Rib cage and pelvis, set that right, and you start to get a better translation of shoulders or hips or feet or all that sort of stuff. So it was interesting to see that you do the exact same thing. Yeah. So and we were talking about before, but it's like that middle out approach. But for me, that I can't change the middle until I touch on the arms. But it is like this middle out by going top down. Yeah. I thought it was really cool. It'd be interesting to see how, especially like your calves, like you were saying that your calves are quite often the limiting factor for running.
Without a doubt. And you saw it from I felt it. I felt it. It was just shin. Like I just moved my shin.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing that moves. And then the only thing that I feel when running is my calves. Like nothing else. And ideally, I think I'm like, is it deconditioning? Is it this? Is it that? I'm like, I think it's just shitty. Because I train my calves.
Yeah.
Like I've been training them, and I feel like there's just been a point where it's not helping anymore. It's not helping. And David Gray, someone that we follow, and he's more biomechanics, rehab, stuff like that. He talks about it like with co-contractions of limbs. Like when he does a lot of his movements, like it's not just like gastroc in isolation. Like we're not just doing a calf raise. We'll have a bent knee, but with like a contracted foot, and it's everything is working with everything else. So that is a more run-specific position, or it's whatever else. I just found like what we did out there was just extrapolated, or it was technique. It was with that technique. So my whole body's working with me rather than just the fucking shin and calf doing all this work. Like I'm excited. I want to go for a run. Like I was going to lift today, but I'm gonna run today.
How good?
I have to. I'm hanging. Yeah.
How good is that?
I'll let you know if my calves are fucked. Then
I haven't helped. I'll change my number. But you think like the shins are really. I mean, you use the shin because that's what was levering through that knee. But if you think about the angle of the force of that movement as you hit the ground, it's very much a horizontal force through that limb. And what's one of the main things that happen when someone starts running? They sore shins.
Yeah.
Sore shins. And you think about, okay, well, how are you stacking it? How are you loading it? Now, you land a particular way. You land it a different way. But if it's still got that flat movement whilst hitting ground, you've got these horizontal planes of force going forward and back, and it's actually against the tibia rather than stacked on top of. So you think about how you're landing, the direction of the force that's happening. So you're going to actually flex the tibia over and over and over and over again. And that's how shin splints become a problem as well. It's like the angle of the movement upon landing. And I know that's not what you're talking about, but it is as a result of that movement.
Just quickly interrupt this podcast for a word from our sponsors, which today is Three Kings Wealth Management, who we need to let you guys know are running a free course at the moment. There's 9 lessons or 9 sections, modules within it of 15 lessons. I think there's about 53 videos in there. It's jam-packed. I've been rolling through it myself, learning some risk management strategies for investments and all of those sort of things. I can't actually believe how detailed the free course is. These boys have also been using the services as a whole of Three Kings Wealth Management. Do you want to just quickly run us through what you boys have been going with?
Changed my life.
Changed your life.
Hey, it's been great. It's been good. It's got me and my partner set on the right direction with the goals that we want to achieve in terms of financial and travel and living our life. And that's it's been really good for my mental health as well.
I found it invaluable because I started with some of the Three Kings educational resources before I signed on, and it gave me an understanding, and a big part of it is education with Ryan. And I think the combination of being told what to do, because that's what I need, but also understanding finances a bit more, and him speaking my language has made it a lot better. My language being a choco. No, it's not a big choco, but it's good. It's good. It helps. It's helped me a lot. So.
Yeah, so again, the link will be down below, but Three Kings Wealth Management, they've got a free course. It's also available to jump on a 15-minute chat with Ryan and the Three Kings team to see if you're a good fit for their services. So check that out below. Links down below. Can't recommend them enough. Let's get back to the show. I'm fascinated to see how you boys go.
I'm curious to see. I obviously can't run this week because I've got my comp on this weekend, but next week I'm curious to see how my arches go, because my arches have been the thing that blow up. I get to about the 12-minute mark. So I'm doing a continuous run for about 12 minutes because I'm coming off no running conditioning at all. 12 minutes, arches start to really feel like on fire. So I'm keen to see if that.
Does that make sense to you that your arches are the first things that start to go when you're running for 12 minutes?
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
To me, currently, it does.
No, as in stepping away from your understanding of your own.
No.
Like if someone came to you and said, "Oh, my arches start hurting after 12 minutes."
My arches are the limiting factor.
Yeah.
No.
Does that make sense?
No.
And the way that you land, like the proprioception and like the balancing and like what you have to do to stop yourself.
Yeah.
And I can't see because you've got your shoe was on the whole time, and probably can't see even if it was out. But if you're just going to be gripping the whole time as well, rather than actually allowing the mechanic to change and load the specific areas that you want to, then that's why it'd be the first place to go.
You're fighting something.
Yeah, and gripping onto and then going through a movement that probably isn't the best movement for you.
So we should theoretically be loading up the other bigger muscle groups of the lower limb, and they take the load dispersion.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I'm excited just from that arm swing because it did feel easier, just effortless.
Float.
Yeah.
Sting like
Float
a
like a
butterfly.
How did you
Sting like a
How did you become a running coach? Where's the passion for running start?
As a kid, I used to love running. Like I played hockey, pretty good level.
Field hockey?
Yeah, field hockey, and then played overseas professionally. But when I was growing up, I just used to like running. I grew up in Canberra. There's running tracks everywhere, and just loved it. But the coaching side of it was more about, even at that age, I was like listening to my own footsteps and wondering like why it sounded a little bit different, and just started to kind of change upper body of all places rather than lower to try and start to even it out. And why did that work? And then that's probably just progressed from there.
Yeah, and just sort of, are you self-taught?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
I did did a teaching degree, did PE.
Yeah, but
sports
they're not
science.
Teaching you running.
No, they're not.
You can't turn a two. Well, we'll talk about some of the athletes.
No.
No PE teachers taking a 2:10 marathon run.
But it's not. It's not like just some farm kid in Canberra that reads his own books. I'm like, I had education, but
but self-taught from the running side of things.
Yeah, and then understanding like what it was that made things work better than others, and just trying to work through that. Met a guy in Canberra who did something similar and learn a bit off him as well, and it just kind of become this whole kind of collective into what I do now.
Yeah.
But even that probably, I gave that a good 15 years before then I just started to coach people once I stopped playing hockey really, or was in that kind of transition period.
Yeah.
And it just grew from there.
Who were some of your like original athletes? Were they all field, or were they track runners, or were they more like the field sports?
No, the two actually, funnily enough, The two that come to mind originally, one was a recreational runner and she just wanted to get more out of it. And another one was a mate who was a middle distance marathon runner and wanted to get over some hamstring injuries. And he's like, well, give that a go. And so they were kind of like a bit of a testing ground in some regards. But now he's the guy that's put all the videos and stuff together on the website and the online
That's
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah, so he's ended up becoming like a bit of on the membership side, like a bit of a business partner.
Yeah, nice.
But he believes in it, he's lived it, and he's like, he gets it.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps that side of things, but he's just kind of all in. But then the other group I started was like through a heap of CrossFitters.
Yeah, well, I feel like CrossFitters would love it.
Well, they do, and they love it, and they get a lot out of it rather than
They're all
actually
fridges. They're like these
they are.
boys.
Yeah.
More Charlie. You're not as fridge-like as Charlie.
Small.
And they're always worried about like their lower backs and their hammies.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Fuck,
Why
we
is my
just-"
back pumped
Yeah.
everything I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were probably like, that was the start. And I think just started to work with a few friends and word of mouth was everything. And that just kind of, it worked. People got better, less injured, and it just kept snowballing.
Yeah. Have you seen a big reduction in injuries or not reduction, but like people, like the guy with the hamstrings, like, because objectively you can tell, like when you change your technique, you change where things are loaded and all of that sort of stuff. Are you seeing big impacts from that perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, heaps.
Even like AFL boys that you're working with?
Yeah,
and
a few
stuff?
that. Like one of the guys had been injured for 6 or 7 years, and I worked with him all last summer, played every game.
Yeah.
And they were like repetitive stress injuries, in particular, like lower limb, foot, stress fracture. Nothing else changed other than his
Running
movement
technique.
mechanics,
Yeah.
But it's more people either are not getting injured or they're getting PBs or both.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like the pendulum swung like very far with technique. And like the way we look at it, it's like if you stress the body gradually, you expose it to stress slowly over time, you'll adapt, shit technique or otherwise. But I do think, and this is where that idea I think goes too far, is like with performance. You know, and you're talking about efficiency and economy, and these are performance athletes whose engines are so fucking big. It seems like there is a technique that the graded exposure approach maybe will only take them so far before their performance is limited or so on. It's like we see people like, we're like pushing calf training a bit because we're strength athletes. Charlie's a strength athlete. I'm a strength enthusiast. And it's just like, we're like, train your fucking calves because your lungs adapt pretty quickly, whether you got into this or not. They're a rate limiter. And then some people are like, nah, just run slow. And I'm like, yeah, but how long are you going to do that for? You know what I mean? I do think there is this combination of, we say with training, with squats, like if your back's pumped the entire fucking time you're squatting, like it's probably a technique thing, you know, no matter how well you adapt to it. So,
but even you said before, like you've trained your calves and yet they're still the limiter.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So I'm in agreement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
It's a bit of everything.
It's a bit of everything.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's like
Where's middle ground? Every fucking time.
The really
Yeah, but the
interesting.
middle ground sucks.
It does suck. You can't sell the middle ground.
sell it.
Nah, that's it.
The interesting thing though in running is, so if we use the difference between say running and cycling, because both endurance based, like it's not the impact based, one's more strength endurance, one's aerobic and impact based. However, in cycling, because you're fixed on a bike and the understanding, the awareness of how important technique is in a specific position is known. So you go to the Tour de France and everyone's within 1 to 2% of each other in a technical side. Then it becomes individual physiology and what they are best suited to, whether it's hills or speed whereas in running, the variance between the elites of how they move is so big, it is ridiculous. So a guy who is the world record holder, broke 2, Kipchoge that we spoke about before, has a far inferior VO2 max than a few of the other elites.
But he punishes them.
And you just think, well, hang on, why? Because these other ones move like fridges, or they're horrible. Inefficient, ground contact, increased braking force. So the only way that they can be competitive is have huge engines. To be like, a Ferrari going up against, my Nissan. Mine's a truck. So it's like, but
It's a nice truck.
Thanks. But, and then you go, okay, well, how am I going to get the truck as fast as the Ferrari? And go, well, fuck, I'm going to have a Formula One engine in it just to be competitive. But it's still a truck.
Yeah.
So the only way that these guys can be competitive with Kipchoge is because they're so superior. But then you go, well, why can't we just change their technique? And at the moment, because it hasn't been done or it's not understood as well, and you just think, well, they're elite, so you keep letting them move that way. That's kind of like the misunderstanding at the moment.
Where does that line... Like, would you feel confident taking one of these, not second or third tier, but like these second, third placings that you've identified inefficiencies? Are you confident enough to go into that and be like, this guy needs to change this?
100%.
You would?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Fuck yeah.
100%.
That's gangster.
Let's do it then. Let's fucking set it up.
Shoot him a DM.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the guys that I was telling you about that I just went over and started working with in the States, like he's the USA's greatest distance runner possibly ever at the moment. 206 marathon runner. Just start working with him straight away. Like, fucking oath, I can help. Like, if you can help, then you can help.
Because, like, I'm viewing this from, like, so, like, Usain Bolt's, and I don't know if you know much about sprinting technique or whatever, but Usain Bolt, for, like, 10 years, everybody just picked his technique apart and was like, da-da-da. And then he just kept getting faster and faster and faster and just broke every record, didn't lose for, like, 14 years or whatever it was. And eventually everyone went the other way and like, oh, what can we learn from Usain Bolt and what he does in his start position and his first few strides and all of that sort of stuff.
But the biggest thing about his poor technique was the fact that he took longer to get up to pace and that his turnover wasn't quite as high as others, and you're supposed to have he had fucking longer legs.
Yeah, 6'6" or whatever he said.
It takes longer to generate or to start turnover. However, he's super powerful, and once he gets up there, if he has the same turnover
he's gone.
with that range, see you later. And what happened? See you later. So they're picking apart. He's going, it's fucked. It won't go very far.
What about
3 Olympic golds and 100 later? Well, maybe there's something to this. He's just got longer legs and a lower turnover.
Yeah. Who was the American 400 runner?
Michael Johnson.
Yeah, Michael Johnson. What about his technique?
But he's really unique that whilst it's in this really funny position as it looks,
he's like real upright, chest out.
Where the important part is like hip position and range of motion. He's good.
He's nailing it.
And I think it's almost like he's so out of shape through that up a bit. It almost comes back to like a neutral in-line position, but it's just like, I'm so far that way, and that counter position is so far that way. But the important part is in a pretty good shape and fucking fast.
Fast as hell.
Yeah. he's really quick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But funnily you say that, is like, Michael Johnson was winning everything. Everyone was coaching like, you got to have this big lower back arch and everyone's got to run like him. You go, no. No, like, if anything, like, that's the anomaly.
Yeah. Yeah, let it be the anomaly.
Yeah, and he was so strong through his core that he could hold that position at that pace for that period of time.
So from an efficiency standpoint, would you hold Kipchoge, obviously he's the fastest ever and he's doing things that we never thought would happen, but is he sort of what you would call like the gold standard archetype of like a long distance runner of like his stride and his efficiency and all that?
Yeah, look, I mean, he's as close as current. But even him, if you look next time, like he has a slight little thoracic extension. So again, to talk about, would be confident going and speak. If I was given the keys to that Ferrari, I'd be happy to actually to make a change, to try and help that out, to try and change that, to increase that ability to get more out of what he's got.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck. All right, I'm going to have to analyse Kipchoge.
The ribs
but
down.
There's a few, for him, it'd be maybe a little bit more kind of framing, because to get like a stacking different position through there rather than just the ribs down. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I got a question with now transitioning this to like sprinting. You know the little arm technique you taught us? You said before it just becomes more range of motion. So is it that same plane of motion? We're just going bigger, as Bulls would say, big shapes?
Yeah.
Bigger shapes.
Well, not a bigger, yes, but no. Like, so I don't want that pendulum movement because your humerus hasn't got any longer.
Yep.
So I don't want that arc to be any bigger, but I want the range of motion to increase with
distance.
that same, But just how far you go up and back and how far you go up and forward increases until you can't. You're going to have a natural range limiter, depending on the individual. And then when you get to that point, then it becomes more of them. So you're going through that same increased range of motion more times, which is telling your legs to do a similar thing. So your femur swing is going bigger and it's going, oh, okay, well, now I've got to do this quicker, but that big range of motion, which is creating more force and applying it to the ground, which is creating more forward propulsion.
Yeah, and just for some context here, Paul was explaining it will be in the video, but your technique from like a slower speed and then accelerating up in meters per second or whatever speed, I guess. It's just speed. Getting faster. Getting faster is it's a very similar technique. It's just you're increasing range. You're increasing range of the legs and the range of motion of the hips and the range of motion of the arms. And
Until you can't increase range, then you increase frequency.
A big part of enjoyment in training is not feeling pigeonholed to one specific thing. The ability to do a strength or hypertrophy focus block and then pivot into something else. And I think the Strength Culture Training app is fantastic to have those options there and ready to you. We've got 16 programs with more programs being released on a month-to-month basis. You don't have to commit. You can go on and you can have a look and get a preview of each program, see what tickles your fancy, pick one, and then get into it.
Yeah, and then if you can't increase frequency, I mean, there's your limiter, and there's like how long can you hold it for?
Yeah. And then how would you then take that person, get that next little bit out of them?
What do you mean by that?
All right, so you said there's your limiter.
Just yell at them.
Yell at them. there's their limiter. They can't fucking they can't pump their arms any quicker.
Yeah, well, some people you can't go any faster. Like you
That's
can't
it.
you can't just make shit up after that.
You're done.
where do you
steroids?
So
Yeah, like it is. I mean, well,
no, he's got a brand he's got to hold up here.
Not a brand of EPO. No. That felt wrong. No.
He's got a professional brand. We can't be. No, there's no EPO.
No.
If you need API, give me a buzz.
But that is the
no.
answer.
It's like there is a limit to how fast each four
and how
of us
efficient
can
somebody.
be.
Yeah. So when we view, Buzz and I used to be S&C coaches, and we'd enter an AFL team or a soccer team or whatever, and part of the problem was always you got to get them stronger. You got to get them in the gym, increase rate of force development. If you can apply more force down into the ground gives you more force and pushes you forward and all of that sort of stuff. Do you see value in strength training for most people, or do you think it is just timing, rhythm, and actually?
Well, this podcast isn't going to last much longer if I say no.
No, because as I've gotten older, I've realised how little strength training has on mainly field sport stuff, but how little it is.
No, I think it is important because if you can produce more, there's a separation between the two. If you can produce more when you need it, you can utilise it if done well. I think it's also more important as a injury prevention. So if you can actually do what you are supposed to do, the amount of times you are trying to do them, and you are using a lower percentage of your maximum output,
you've got a higher capacity.
Yeah. You've got a higher capacity, or you're using less, so you're not stressed as much.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about that. I think then when it comes into this, I'm thinking about strict running. Now you think about like team-based sports stuff, because there's so much change of direction, impact, depending on what sport it is. Yes, it's important, but not as important as what some strength and conditioning trainers think in regards to force production.
Yeah,
and you're going to be faster and you're going to be
Yeah. Which is sort of because I know 10 years ago I would have been like everyone. They just need to squat more. You get them to double body weight,
so they can be stronger.
Yeah, but then the more you get into it, all of a sudden it's like, well, hang on, just get them fitter, let them play their skill. And
if we utilize, say, running technique in particular, because that's the one where you start to think about team-based sports or running-based team-based sports. If we isolate running technique and just kind of remove it, and let's not call it running technique, we just call it a skill of some sort, whether it be kicking or whatever it is that team-based sport you're thinking about. Don't worry about running, just it's a skill component. If we just think about it like that, then we'll go into, say, like a basketball, and the analogy I often use is like, Ben Simmons doesn't get into the gym to make his shooting better. It's a skill.
Yeah.
It's a skill-based stuff.
He just isn't.
It just doesn't shoot.
He doesn't do anything.
But the only way that he's going to get better at that, if he wants to, is get better at the skill of shooting.
Yeah.
No amount of strength is going to help. And yet running is the only thing where you go, oh, okay, we'll just go over there, do some more deadlifts and some squats and come back and think you're going to get better at running.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Boys, stop training your calves. Stop. I haven't trained my calves in 10 years. Never had a calf problem. I'm just gonna put it.
Nah.
Don't
I
run.
like training my calves.
Don't do anything.
I like training my calves.
Yeah, no, it's a matter of like how strong is strong enough, and it's not as strong as you think it is.
Nah.
That's the biggest thing, because like getting someone a bigger deadlift to squat is not going to make him change direction better or react to this just react to game time better. Like, it doesn't happen.
Well, as we talked about with yours, like you're strong, you do enough strength stuff, but if you don't go through a range of motion through the hip and have a femur swing, it doesn't matter how strong you are. And then you go for and you're going just squat more.
Yeah, squat more.
But then they'll run around and just use the lower leg and just use your shins, and then think, fuck, they're still not getting any faster. I go, shit, but they're squatting so much.
I want to know. I want you to elaborate further on why your views changed. Because I remember when we first had the gym, you used to think like the footy boys are coming in and you just but
the footy guys, amateur footy, they suck anyway.
No,
It's just fucking.
I know
like,
that.
there's
That's not the
definitely but there's a middle ground.
that's not the point. I know because I know exactly. I was there for this. You weren't there.
So
Because he used to hammer them. He's like, stronger. And then he turned and he's like, I realised that just going stronger doesn't.
So it was a few things.
I want you to elaborate.
I
for
can't remember
listeners.
who I had the conversation with, but I eventually found out that the strength and conditioning coach within an organization is pretty much the bottom rung.
Yeah.
And I started like being like, well, why the hell do they get paid the least? Why is their job security? And eventually I just sort of got to the idea that this organization has worked out that job is the least valuable out of everyone in this organization. It just is. Yeah. Otherwise it wouldn't be paid the lowest. You wouldn't have 20-year-olds running it. You'd have an actual stream of education and like development for these coaches. Like, there's a reason that all of the clubs hold a strength and conditioning coach at that level. And I was just like, maybe it doesn't actually impact that much.
Well, the conditioning coach, though, like
The HPM.
the HPM, yeah.
Whereas in like the ones that are doing a good job, so AFL, we'll use that as an example, the ones that actually get their team like running over the ground better than anyone because of a fitness level,
repeat efforts.
Fuck, they're getting paid the big
but
dogs.
the strength.
No.
Exactly. So I was always like, well, what is it about this? And then I don't know. I sort of just removed myself and then started building the business and all of this sort of stuff. But as I've just gone further in, I'm just like Dane Swan. Dane Swan was and then when I was working in AFL, two of the best players didn't do any strength work. They literally would come off and they'd be like, my back's sore. And then they'd go home. And then on the weekend, they'd have 35 touches. They'd get 3 votes and leave the game. And I'm like, well, is strength doing anything for any of these people? Like, I'm sure it is at a lot of levels. And like, there's nuance, the grey middle, like middle area.
Middle ground.
But even from just like...
Just keep hearing about this middle ground.
Yeah. But even
Fuck the middle ground.
Yeah. But even from like watching what you've just done with the boys there, and like, I actually, as soon as it was just like this little arm pump, I was like, his stride length has increased, his legs moving over, he's no longer just 4-footing everything. Like it looks just more like, I'm like, he's running. And then you turned around and came back and were like, that felt so much better. And I'm like, well,
I should have done some Bosch step ups, and that would sort of be
more. So I don't know that. So I don't know. It was just my theories.
Honestly, I think get that out for the listeners. But no, because I've seen the transition. Because I haven't really come from that much of an S&C background. I've just heard these two bitch and moan about how shit it is, the industry and the jobs, everything Jamie just said then. And but I wanted to ask you, because even for me now, going back thinking about my footy days, it's like, right, there's a massive skill component of kicking, handball, all that crap. It's a running-based sport. So
no one teaches you to run.
Yes. And I'm like, well, could I have been a better footy player? Because if I can get to A to B quick, I can get more touches, use less energy, be fit. Like, and it's just your whole game can change because you are more efficient at running. Do teams do this? Do you know if like soccer, basketball?
Skips.
Yeah.
I've actually got a few questions that I really want to get into this.
Yeah, because I think it could have made me a lot better of a footy player if I knew how to run.
So there's probably a couple of components to it. Like if you had the skills and the skill level that were exceptional, but just can't get from A to B, then it doesn't matter how good you are at handballing and kicking.
That was me.
Yeah. Then
he could jump real high.
I had really good skills.
But it was about 10 meters behind play because you couldn't quite get there.
No, I had really good skills. I was really like that was something I always, when I had the ball, used it well.
Yeah.
But I couldn't the difference between those really good players on the field is they got 35 touches.
Yeah.
And every time you look, they're there. They're
Yeah.
doing something. Whereas me, I use the ball really well, but I only did it 15 times for the game.
And you could run perfectly and been unfit and you could still have the same outcome.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like you weren't willing to put in the effort to try and actually get from A to B. It was just that it took a little bit longer to get there.
Yes.
And by the time you got there, you were probably gassed. So by the time you need to go again, you're like, oh, fuck.
Fucking done.
So, yeah, you don't get it. So, yeah, you see it on a footy field, like you see it in the AFL. You see it at the end of the year where people like, there's a guy from Carlton who had all the skills in the world but just couldn't get from A to B very often. And this young kid who was touted as he was a top 10 pick, but he just physically couldn't get around the ground. You just think, well, there's things that can help that. It happens. It's just that I think like you talk about, I think I might be one little rung above the strength and conditioning at the moment. So they're like, no, we've got bigger fish to fry, which is old mate can't kick a goal. So it doesn't matter how many squats or how well he runs. If he can't kick a goal, we've got to work on that.
They don't even work on that, though.
Well, they don't, because it's all about recovery by this stage.
Well, I think we're just talking about it's rehab. They just pump everything into rehab.
But then they neglect the thing that wins games, which is kicking goals.
Yeah.
None of the fucking players can do it. So if you taught people to run and kick goals, you'd win more games.
Yeah. Yep.
We've worked it out, boys.
Figured it out.
But it's true.
$500,000 a year. Split it 3 ways. I'll be happy with that.
I find, and this is probably a little bit, this is a little bit off topic. I struggle to believe that they need 4 days to recover. Like if you keep giving them 4 days to recover until they train once, then play the next week, of course they're going to need 4 days to recover. And then I played hockey, and yes, it's not the physical contact stuff, but we run just as much, higher intensity, change the direction. We play 9 games in 12 days.
Wow.
How many?
9 games in 12 days, but that's just what you get used to.
And how did you guys wear GPS trackers or stuff?
Yep.
So how many kilometres did you rack up?
Depending on the game, I was a midfielder, and we'd play 6 minutes on, 3 minutes off, so it's just continual rotation, and I'd get up where around 9, 10 kilometres, and that's a 70-minute game.
Carrying a stick.
Carrying a stick. It's all high. It's all into high intensity running. So that's not including warm up, cool down, whatever it is. That's game running. So you just think if they were used to, recover. Yep, maybe on the second day start actually getting moving and training. Yeah, by the third and fourth day they're ready to go again. Then they can start practicing this stuff. They can do midweek, running sessions. Might not be contact. I just think 7 days, and then that just means they have to take 7 days.
Yeah. Sticking with AFL, because I know you've worked individually with some AFL guys. Have you ever been brought in to help a team?
Nah,
never.
Not yet.
Yeah, well, I feel like eventually it's going to happen, but I was going to say, do you feel like you're moving in that direction, or those opportunities might come, or somebody will speak to a high performance manager and say, hey, Paul's fucking done this for me. I feel great. Do you see those opportunities coming? Or?
I do, because one of the assistant coaches at one of the clubs is every off season he's sending me athletes going you need this because you can't do what we're just talking about.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a progression to that point, but I'm not seeking it because they just expect everyone to work for free. I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, fuck
that. So the assistant coach or assistant strength and conditioning coach?
No. Hey, as if I'd speak to the assistant strength and conditioning
coach.
That was me. I was the assistant.
I'm kidding.
It would be a 20-year-old.
I'm obviously kidding. The assistant coach.
Yeah, I feel like S&C faculty won't give you the call up, stepping on toes.
Yeah,
exactly. Because
I feel like there would be too much of a guy. Yeah, no.
Well, they think I can do that. No, we do that already. We do technique stuff already.
Look at that. We've got the hurdles.
Yeah, we do the hurdles.
The lateral A skip going.
Yeah, and we do A skips. We do. Yeah, that's how you get better.
Well, that would be my next question.
Do you do A skips?
Yeah. Well, you see these A skips, B skips, and then a lot of constraint based running where you'd put a hurdle or cones and it's cadence.
What happens as soon as you take the hurdles away?
Well, I don't know.
They go back to their normal movement.
So I feel like we can translate this back to what we do. And, we always talk about big rocks of the squat. The first thing is set the rib cage and pelvis. And if you don't do that, nothing else
really matters.
So I feel like the way you teach running is similar. It's like we've got to set this straight. And then you can bring all these constraints and shit, but then if none of that's right, it's not doing anything.
So it's a drill. It's good for warm-up. It's good to get yourself moving. It's good if you want to utilize a specific movement to then use as your one cue. So if you do the hurdles, or you use the A skip or the B, you wouldn't use B skip.
Flick them.
Yeah, and then you pull back. And you'd use one of those drills to then say, okay, now let's manipulate that, or turn the volume up or turn the volume down. Now repeat that. Okay, now that's your cue. But that in itself, the drill doesn't change someone's movement pattern because it doesn't. It's a warm up.
Yeah.
What's the context that you get from that skill, from that drill?
If you utilize it correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you get them to isolate the movement into their movement and then go, okay, now repeat that movement and now continue to repeat that movement until it's a part of your movement pattern.
Yeah, and I also liked how you would contrast it. You'd be like 20 meters of your new technique and then 20 meters of your old technique. And the boys, Charlie, by the end of it was like, I don't even want to do the old one.
It felt like dog shit. I can't wait because I got nationals is on Sunday, and then depending on how I feel, I'll probably Monday just get out. And I just want to see, because it'll be a really good indicator for me, because 2Ks is about where I like, whether it's probably my aerobic capacity is a bit shit.
Yeah, but that's not your plantar. Like that's
but it'll be curious to see how all this responds to that. Just doing that, and I'm just going to go nice steady pace, the fuck little arm swing, and see how it
Float, yeah.
Well, and we talked about at the end, it's giving the athlete the choice.
Yeah.
Of what is better, what it feels better to them, rather than being told that's better. It's how do those two feel? And as you said, it feels like dog shit.
Yeah. I never told you, like, nah, I'm good. After the old
not to my face.
Hiring. They're fucking becoming a hire.
Nah, there's been one in particular I can think in my mind. She was all over the place. So, like, it was more about constraining some movements to bring into then, like, kind of go. And she walked away, and I think she was a bit upset because she expected everything to be changed, like, and everything to be done in one. But also, if you can't understand that doesn't work like that, then I'm happy not to.
Instant gratification at its best, because you think about anything that you do, any skill. Like, I've learned to play guitar. It's like little things at a time. Even with the golf now, like you would never expect to go to a golf coach and everything's fixed in one session.
No,
it's like it's a slow. And then you got to get that technique.
And then it's quite fluid. So you might have that golf swing down, or the grip, just the grip alone.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you hit a shit shot, and then you'd be starting to think, oh fuck, I'll just twist this a little bit more, and then all of a sudden that becomes your habit. So movement, even at the best of times. So Tiger Woods, he still has a golf coach. He hasn't clocked golf and then gone, cool, don't have to think about my swing anymore. You do.
You're always
because it is fluid, and you can start to change it and go, bring it back into here, or bring it back, or start to improve there. Running's the same. So with your do you work with some high level guys that have you're seeing them constantly?
Yep, and just constantly refining their technique, working on.
Yeah, it might not be quite as frequent at that point, because then you can or you can oversee them a little bit more. You can go to some of their sessions, you can kind of refine a little bit through it.
Yep,
but yeah. Definitely. But I think also when we're talking about like the business side of things, I made sure even at the start, it's like, well, I don't want someone just to come in each 2 weeks because I'm trying to create a salary for myself. I want to, give them enough time to make it autonomous. But even if they don't want to do anything for the next 2 to 3 months and then book in, no problem. Like that can be their development approach. And then it's a long-term fix rather than a short-term fix for my wallet or a Band-Aid for them.
Yeah. Trying to fit it all in one. The Strength Culture Training app is a fantastic way to get a look inside what we offer here through a coaching service. Our programs are all in there. You get access to us in the Discord for form checks and educational videos. If you're interested in what we're doing here at Strength Culture and want to dip your toes in, the Strength Culture Training app's a perfect thing for you.
And I guess we've spoken a lot about like the skill side of running now. Do you also program their running?
No,
you don't do any of that.
No,
all skill.
Really?
No.
It's just the skill.
Just the
skill. Wow. So you don't, because I was going to ask, like, because we've been doing we've been looking a lot into running programming, and like the rules that we've sort of the base rules we've come across, like 80%.
This would be interesting.
Or it's like zone 2 work.
Yeah,
focus on that. Built 80%, and again, we've also diving into a lot of concurrent stuff. So this is for strength guys wanting to run and do triathlons or whatnot.
Yeah,
and then 20% is your more threshold tempo work.
Where's the VO2 stuff?
Well, I don't know. You tell us now.
Zone 2, just build the base.
Zone 2.
That's not VO2. VO2 is the high end.
The high end, so like
they're bumping up
top
the
end.
Yeah, zone 2 is the
base
aerobic.
Building. That's 60
oxygen.
Oxygen sorry.
Base.
Yes, yeah.
So you want to do VO2 stuff the other end.
Zone 2 is your slow and duration, and the reason that with the concurrent stuff is from a recovery standpoint, because then we got to do a running session and then a day or two later come in and crush a big deadlift or whatever.
That's what runners struggle with actually doing strength and conditioning within their programming, because it starts to take away from what they want to do, which is the actual running. So it's like, well, I don't want to do any of that because I'll wake up the next day feeling like junk.
Yes,
and
which
I
makes
can't
sense
run.
if you're a runner. But for us,
exactly.
as a more trying to push concurrent stuff, we've got to have that recovery aspect in mind. What would you... So the Coke Zero is repeating on me. The VO2 stuff. So what? So you don't do? Do you want to even answer this question?
What's the question?
What would you do for your VO2 stuff?
So firstly, I'd recommend finding out what pace you need to be running at to start to actually tap into VO2, but then also understanding how to improve VO2 max running, which I think is actually misunderstood within the running community and even triathlon community. It's like work to rest ratio 1-to-1, and 1 is not float, 1 is rest, and getting up to sort of 20 minutes of work. But that pace becomes really important. So you need to run at a pace that you're actually tapping into that real high end heart rate, and then recovering enough that you can actually hit that high end pace again. Whereas in running, a lot is about, oh no, you got to float, or the recovery is actually, it's work to rest 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, but with a float. But it's sort of all just ends up being in threshold or lactate threshold zones.
Yeah, you're not maximising time at
You're not.
max by doing that. Yeah,
but people are like, no, it's time on feet. You got to be moving, or it's got to be a less recovery. No, if you don't get the 1-to-1, you're not actually going to be able to run at 310 pace, 250 pace, 240 pace, wherever it is that individual is. And it's like, it's fucking hard. That's the whole idea of the VO2 set. But you're like hands on knees, fucking cooked for, say if it's 3 minutes to 3 minutes, gassed for the first 90 seconds. And
that's
then
more zone 5.
Yeah, that's the high end. But people don't do
it.
No.
All right, because that's what we've been. So you got your zone 2, which is threshold, aerobic threshold.
No, aerobic, yeah.
And then the threshold tempo stuff is more zone 3, 4. But then you're going.
So that's lactic threshold.
Yeah, lactate threshold, and then the top end.
You're going fast.
Yeah,
probably.
And to be honest with you, like what you're talking about and the people you're talking about, they're probably the two ends you'd probably focus on. Don't worry about lactate threshold. They're not doing 10K races. Yeah. And they're going to do a better 10K race if they do actually work in the VO2.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to actually move those zones up. So if your VO2 stays and all you're doing is increasing or improving your ability to utilize oxygen as a fuel source, you're narrowing the gap between aerobic and VO2. You're not pushing that up. Or similarly, if you're doing your threshold sessions in the right area, at the right pace, at the right heart rate, so then that becomes important as well to know what that pace is at that heart rate zone is. You working in that, which is where everyone works, all they're doing is maximizing what that is within the VO2. Whereas if you do the VO2, you can actually shift
You can
them all
lift
up.
the whole curve.
So across a week, you'd probably have your zone 2, you'd have your VO2, and then threshold if you go.
Don't even worry about threshold, to be honest, if you're only running 3 or 4 times a week,
Crazy.
So build the
maximize
zone 2,
time at VO2.
Maximize time.
Maximize time at VO2. And then, like someone like me now, very little running back for the last 5 years, very little running anyway. I've done probably 7 runs now of zone 2, very slow. Would you bring in VO2 work now? Or because my understanding was I'll just keep building my aerobic base, get my everything, ticking along nicely, and then start to do some more.
Oh, look, I think it is safe to do some time spent to that aerobic, but also it's more fun to do some other shit as well. Like, I'd start to add a little bit, maybe not a huge
I want to go
session.
fast.
Yeah, to do that. Like,
I want to go fast.
That's the thing. But I think also if you're still working within that, 10% increase over a certain period of time and you're still working within your 80-20, that's okay. It's not like I want to go fast or do 50-50. Like, that's just dumb.
Yeah.
Because it's
like once a week.
variety as well. Yeah. So it's like adding some semblance of variety. You go, cool, I'm gonna tap into something else. But 85 or 75 to 85% is going to be at this zone.
Zone 2 base building, and then you said 1-to-1 work rest ratio
for VO2.
For VO2, rest being complete rest.
Yeah, like just
suck it in.
Sucking
if
it
you're
in,
going
walking around.
A minute work and then just a minute off.
Yeah.
And
you're doing that. Well, the base level idea is you do at least 10 to 20 minutes of work, which also means then just 10 to 20 minutes of rest. But you're sort of working up to a point where you can do
21-minute efforts.
Well, yeah.
Could
Or 7 by 3 minutes. Oh, that's 21, but still 7 by 3s.
Yep.
Three on, three off.
4
That
by-
starts
4
to
by
become
4.
really good running based stuff.
Yep.
Footy based would be more 1-to-1, I reckon.
Yep.
And that's real VO2.
Yep.
But they normally work on field based stuff as being like 1-to-3,
Yep.
or 1-to-2, 1-to-3.
Or
Where they're
just-
going flat out. They're going probably a little bit faster, but I think you can actually work on somewhere between the 1-to-1, maybe not quite as fast, but because that's exactly where they're running.
Yep.
But that's just, that's outside my realm of specificity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you don't program.
Yeah.
You just do technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with.
Niched.
I don't. Yeah.
You found your niche.
Yeah. Well, it's the bit that's monster. So you can't even hold on to his can. It's the bit that I love.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't love the programming stuff.
And it's a
I'm
skill
interested
set,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Buzz and I will definitely be.
Not for programming.
No, not for programming. no, for the technical
Yeah,
stuff. The
Nah, I figured it out.
what you
Nailed it.
Yeah, glenohumeral joint.
That's it. The layout. Well,
Hands
we've
in the
got to
chest.
get our 15 to 20 runs in, and then
Dropping elbows.
I've
then
got
you got your
a,
3-week break. After the 3-week break,
I've got a few. I don't want to call them rapid fire questions, but just I think general like things that I've always thought it doesn't really matter, but I feel like the fucking huge heel Nike shoe that's fucking got like a spring in it, and like a shoe's going to make that much of a difference for your everyday person?
No.
Nah.
Not to the everyday person.
Like these boys, are they better off going like a Kayano? What'd you buy? Kayanos. Like, is that fine? Oh no, not the Kayanos.
Hey,
Let's done. I was happy. I'm ready to throw mine out.
Wait,
Anyway,
rip everything apart. I'm about to ask you barefoot running,
Yeah,
shoe
barefoot running.
choice.
Like heel strike to toast, like all of this stuff.
I
doesn't
reckon
matter.
this is the first time that they've changed any technology in the Kayano since the moon landing. So it's probably the first time that they've actually. Well, they're not as heavy and bulky. They've actually started to become a little bit more of a slimline shoe. They were actually like a real, their workhorse shoe, but they're fucking heavy as anything. They're no good. I don't think.
Kayano's no good.
That's the Charlie's. You've sent him now.
No, the big heel. I mean,
shoe's not doing the work.
that's right. The big. I mean, you can run well in any shoe.
Yeah. So it's not going to matter too much.
It's not. It's just
That's middle ground. We want fucking.
No, but you can.
Nah, we want
The big
specifics.
heel.
Tell
The
me
big
what's gonna
heel
make
thing.
it
so
better.
can you explain?
It's not about the heel.
Aaron
though.
Williams.
huge.
It's
RMs.
it's not about the heel. I've actually got a pair in the car.
of the heel.
Yeah,
RMs.
the Vaporfly. Yeah, RMs. No, the Vaporflies.
Vaporflies. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what was
Nike.
the idea with this heel?
It's not the heel. So you're focused in on it's focused in on the heel.
when I see this,
curve?
It's the air bubble.
It's the swoosh. No. So there's a few bits to it. So everyone thinks it's about the carbon plate that's in the actual midsole. So the midsole is the middle of the shoe. It's not the base of it. It's not the upper.
yeah, like the
midsole.
arch bit.
It's this bit.
Yeah.
I'm pointing at. Yeah, well, there you go. I'm pointing at the middle between the sole of the foot and the ground.
All right.
So
cool.
the tread, there's the tread, the outer, then there's the midsole.
Yeah.
And then there's the upper. So we're thinking the midsole. In the midsole, there is a carbon plate that runs the length of the shoe. Stiffness. So it's about kind of taking and giving back the amount of energy gone into the ground, springs you back off.
Yeah.
It's trying to take away or minimize the amount that you lose. But it's not the carbon plate, it's the midsole material. So the material, the foam that they use, we're using the idea of the Nike ones, the Vaporfly, the midsole foam gives back a much better return than the Kayanos.
Than a normal.
Than the Kayanos, for sure. So it's actually about the thickness of the entire midsole, not just the heel.
Yeah.
And it's how they respond to the ground contact phase. Now, the longer you're on the ground for, the more they're going to take. If you can actually get on and off, it's actually a little bit more spring-loaded. The heel you're seeing in the big
The
chunky...
big chunky. Fucking
yeah, it is the
like-
chunky bit. That's just design.
Really?
Has nothing to do with it because you're not supposed to land on your heel.
Those dirty dogs.
When you move well in a good position with a good mechanic, you are going to create a specific landing that is more likely, if not 100% likely, to be midfoot.
Yeah.
And so then the other part to the shoe is the geometry of the shoe, is to actually get you rocking forward and off the toe off sooner. So it's not just like a natural progression off and through. It's actually hits and it actually kind of catapults you forward.
almost pushes you
Yeah.
in the direction.
But the heel of the shoe is just, it's big. It looks big and it's got that big canoe thing coming off the back because it's actually more of a design thing. If you look at the shoe, and I can show you after, if you look at the tread, So the outer, how much tread there is on the heel, there's 2 tiny little centimetre strips, about 6 centimetres, 5 centimetres long on either side of the heel. That's not so you can fucking hit down.
Yeah, it's
and
not
hit
for
up.
repeated hits. No. It's
So elite. Sorry, this is a tangent now. I don't know. The elite. There's like you said, there's anomalies in like good technique for running, and then there'd be some guys that are so fucking inefficient or whatever. Like, would you see heel strikers in Vaporflies, Alpha Flies? shit
Yeah,
like
you
that?
do, because I think talking about the testing that that Nike have done on the Vaporfly, there is an improvement irrespective of your movement pattern. Yeah.
Right.
But the people that actually get more out of the shoe are the ones that actually move well. What do you
Yeah.
know? So there's a variance between 1% to 6% of how much improvement every individual got from wearing that shoe under testing. And that's the economy. So how much oxygen is required to maintain a pace.
Yeah.
Put those shoes on, needed less.
have they banned the shoe?
No.
They haven't?
No.
Do you reckon they will?
No, never.
No?
Nah.
Because didn't they ban like the swimsuit?
Yeah.
You don't reckon they will?
No.
Yeah, swimming's soft, but
All right, fair enough. Yeah.
No, they won't. They've banned. They can't go over a certain stack height.
Yeah.
So you can't just make them thicker and thicker, thicker, thicker.
Yeah.
You can't use some of those specific shoes on the track. So the Vaporflies you can't use on the track.
Yeah.
In
But for the longer
athletic
distance road
competitions,
running stuff.
Nah, no way. Because the technology development is so important, because it protects the body a lot. Like you'll see a lot of the marathoners nowadays who are starting to use or have been using them for a few years. They're starting to realize they can do more than 2 marathons in one calendar year now, because they're not getting as banged up. Instead of wearing a pair of RMs, like effectively, is like racing flats were so thin. It was like the thinnest shoe because it's the fastest one. You just get up and on.
Light. Yeah.
It bangs the shit out of their
you got
tendons and their
nothing.
muscles.
You just-
Exactly. But now, they get to the end and like, I could probably run tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
That was the shoe I was thinking of when
Yeah.
you,
It's more of the design side of things.
Yeah, it makes sense. But there's obviously still so much technology in there that they've And Nike are pushing that more than anyone else.
No, they were just the first.
They were the first,
and
yeah.
they've done it the best.
Yeah.
Because other companies have jumped on board for sure and make very good shoes. And they're trying to match rather than pioneer.
Yeah, they've already made the.
have you got is it individual shoe recommendations? Some go-to shoes that you would go for?
Nah, that becomes a bit personal. So, like, if you do feel, and in all seriousness, if you
Just
feel much
subjective.
more comfortable in Kayanos, if you put on a pair of Kayanos and go, I actually feel better in this shoe than any one of the other ones, choose that shoe.
That's what matters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's subjective.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. But you'll
look,
find that you'll have movement patterns, and you'll be able to be suggested other pairs of shoes that you might feel better in. You might.
I have this thing about going to like athlete's foot.
Don't.
Yeah, well, this was going to be one of my next
Nah.
things. The treadmill that they fucking
Yeah,
put
because
you
I
on.
was just like, I was like, firstly, this person's working in retail.
It's a 16-year-old.
16-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid studying uni. They don't give a shit. They just want to make their $22 an hour and get the fuck out of there. And they're putting me on, telling me all this shit about my feet. And that's what I was just like, I'm just getting Kayanos because that's what I used to wear back in the day, footy and stuff. I like Asics, and I was like, I'll just get Kayanos.
Yeah, but no, it's true. There's a group called the Running Company who are extraordinary at it. Like they're a service-based company that puts you on the treadmill, like an actual treadmill. They watch you run. They put you in 4 different pairs of shoes, and they tell you why. Or is this for the VO2 sessions, or is this for your aerobic sets? Like, so they're all runners. They all love shoes. Like they're shoe nerds. That's their thing.
Yep.
What's that?
That's
The running
place to-
company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably like 5 or 6 around all of Melbourne.
Yep.
That's the place to go to. And there's another, I don't want to say, you were the one that brought up a specific name. There's another brand or another shoe based company that do running shoes that, like have first or second year university students. I don't know, but they're podiatrists, like they're doing podiatry. So it is very much, they're in their first or second year. They're all learning. They're just learning.
Yeah.
And what they've learned, they're going to use it on what shoe you should wear in not a prosthetic, but in like a control side of things. But it's still someone who's done, 1 or 2 years so far of their degree. And it's not just based on running. Podiatry is more than running. So they're more focused on that side of things. Whereas the running company, it's all just about
Running.
how you run, what you run, what you're doing, what it is that you're doing, and doing day to day. And they love it.
Yeah.
So that's where you go.
Running company. I'd be interested to do something like that. Just
Well, I think it'd be
labeled.
it would be probably a cool video for you because
Yeah.
you can go like the 3 or 4 of you and go like, what would I get suggested? Let's have a look at it. What would the shoes be?
Maybe
We're running
work
guys
on,
now.
work on your.
Let me get my 500 Ks
No,
out.
I need
Yeah.
any excuse to go buy something. Any excuse. I've got
You need to
Vem.
stop buying shit. You tell me off. We have these discussions, and you see you need to tighten up.
Yeah, well.
So you're not buying
Fuck it.
shoes. You're not getting run.
Yeah, but
over.
it's for the content.
Tax
It's
deduction,
for content.
boys.
That's it, man. I've got Kayanos, which they're garbage now, and then the
Vaporflies.
Brooks Adrenaline GTS,
Yeah,
but
what
they
about-
look like shit. So
What are the Brooks Adrenaline GTS? Because you're shaking your head. You're shaking your head at these big brands. When I think of runners, I go Asics and Brooks.
I just go
obviously
Nike. I just go to
Nike,
Nike.
Asics, Brooks are like the big sort of brands. Mizuno.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Adidas.
No.
Oh, this is
New,
big
New
Nike
Balance.
head, man.
No, New Balance makes
they
some
pay-
really
they
good shoes.
pay
It's
you.
about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like what they're doing at the
New
moment.
Balance
New Balance
good?
got some really good shoes. A couple of the newer Asics are a lot better and actually do make some good shoes. It's just you can't with Kayanos.
I don't know.
They're
They're the only ones that are in my head.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
fucking marketed. They've got
Kayanos-
sailing and sea in my head.
They do. I feel like people are like.
But they're
they
also
love
like
Kayan.
$300 and they have been
Oh, I
forever.
got these a lot. I got these.
They're much better than.
hey, catch of the day.
but they're-
catch of the day.
170.
It's about like where the brands are in their kind of in their development. Like Puma are starting to make more running shoes. They're limited with the amounts that they have. Like they got 1 or 2 that are starting to become okay. But it's Nike have got way more.
What's a good budget shoe?
The Pegasus, Nike Pegasus is the go-to, workhorse kind of shoe.
What price range was that?
What? I think it's
We're at
like
athlete's
180.
foot
I
now,
don't know,
man.
170, 180, something like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, mad.
Fuck the count. Me shatter my wheel.
And I can see. I can tell.
We'll get the 500 Ks out of it.
Oh, fuck my arm swing.
5
Yeah.
minutes ago. No, fine.
Didn't even feel like
we'll
it.
get
Didn't even like him.
I'm probably not going to buy them again now.
I reckon bin them.
Well, my
I'd say compare him against another pair of shoes and go, well, shit, there's actually more around than just this. Because a lot of people are like that with Kayanos because they've had them since early 2000s and they're like, I just stuck to them.
gel.
They don't know any difference. But I
Yeah.
would be curious from that standpoint to try a different shoe now as well because I've got running these for
Got a
6
bit of
months.
experience.
And once you do some running, when you do that, the seriously go into the place and then actually try some of the super shoes as well and find out what they feel like to you. Because the first time you put them on, you're like, whoa.
What are the super shoes?
That's the Vaporflies, the Vaporflies, yeah.
The heavy tech.
Race, it's like the race-based,
Yeah.
road-based race shoes.
Yeah.
What does Kipchoge wear?
Alphafly.
Alphafly.
Yeah,
Different
Alphafly.
Nike. He's sponsored by Nike.
Sigma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sigmafly.
He's there.
Percent with some shit like that.
Huh?
Alphafly, next percent. They look hectic. They're fucking mad.
Yeah,
Kipchoge.
they got the AirPods in the front, which is another thing, when you're talking about the midfoot heel strike.
Yeah.
And the shoe's actually designed specifically to land
Right there.
right there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But they've got this huge fucking canoe
well,
at
the canoe at the
yeah.
back. But it's also, and then I don't know, but some people they run heel strike and they're really fast, so it's okay. And the shoes are literally designed. Could insert landing here.
Yeah. Well, this was. I've got probably like one more just like little question related to this, but you also hear about like people needing to like update their shoes, like
500 Ks.
or is that
500K seems a little bit they're supposed to be workhorses. They should probably be more like 1,000 to 1,200.
Oh, easy.
1,000 kilometers? Wow.
Well, it depends on the
Now
shoe.
you're
So
stuck with a shit shoe for 1,200
these ones are
can own
probably
2
around like
shoes.
600 to 800.
Yeah.
The Vaporflies are more around like 200. They got like a lifespan of like 200.
Holy shit.
Because what they're talking about
200
is
Ks.
because
you're-
they're used for racing. So like 5 marathons out of them.
But if you're someone that clocks up, and I'm assuming here marathon runners would clock up during the week. What,
Yeah, but you
60,
don't.
70,
That's the
80
thing.
Ks?
You don't
Wear
run
them.
in them every time. So that to your question. So say I run 7 days a week.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm not probably around like 5 days a week at the moment. I've got like 12 pairs of shoes. But if you are just doing your 5 days a week, I'd recommend at least having 2 to 3 pairs of shoes
That you're
that you're rotating through. Now, inclusive of that is like you might have a faster base shoe. Like this is one of the Peg Turbo, so it's supposed to be a little bit faster here or
a
there.
name like that, you'd hope so.
You'd hope so, yeah. I'm letting down the turbo side of it, but
All right, turbo.
but yeah, exactly. But there's like the Vaporflies, which are the race version. You might use them once a week. So that could be like 10Ks, 12Ks all up, or depending if you're doing some marathon stuff, it might be like 20Ks of effort, 25Ks of effort. So that's once a week. Now that's going to get you, 10 weeks worth.
Yep.
But also you're not going to use them each time. You've probably got 2 pairs of them.
Yeah, so you get them for 4 or 5 months.
And then the other times, like the other 4 days you'd be wearing, say you might wear them once, or you might wear like a real cushiony pair, which is like that real recovery run, because you're just getting 30 to 40 minutes into your legs at an easy pace, and you just want to protect your feet a little bit because you get banged up after running on them all the time. So you need to rotate through them, because otherwise if you wear the same shoe day in, day out, the midsole hasn't decompressed after running in the day before, so you're literally just getting like more and more compressed, and you end up running on cardboard, and it just becomes harder on the feet, which is more likely to get injured again.
So you do want, so if you're running multiple, like 5, 6, 7 days a week, you do need multiple. For that aspect as well.
If not just because people like to buy shit, like it's like you need them to actually protect your feet.
Yeah,
retail therapy,
and keep rotating them, like. Because you start to gain up, like you're walking around on them. So there's another 10Ks, and they start to add up and lose their spring, their return.
Barefoot running?
No.
Shit out?
Oh, look, I understand the reasoning behind it. Yeah, the concept behind it, to give you the proprioception to actually land in a particular manner, because you're creating more forces upon landing, and like the body will naturally go, okay, well, I want to do this and protect. However, we're running at distances, at paces far beyond what that mechanic was set up for, and the amount of times and the longevity.
Yeah, the volumes.
The volumes of it. So yeah, it's got. I think it's got good aspects to it for warm up, cool down, and like kind of activating through that area and giving you that proprioceptive feedback, but not. Okay, I'm going to be barefoot runner now. I'm going to chuck on some of the Vibram 5 fingers and off I go. Can you imagine trying to have like a big, flighty, floaty, powerful movement and then do that for 10K? That's why they don't, because it's just this, because you can't actually create a range or a stride that increases the impact that much and not expect to have some semblance of metatarsal problems.
Yeah, some stress.
If you go carnivore though, you'll be fine.
Rolling over Met 5 and you're sunning your nuts. Have you heard about that? Sunning your nuts.
Oh, I've seen a photo. Isn't like a part? Like I've seen 2 partners sunning there.
Yeah,
it's a new thing. No, it's like this stereotype.
It's a stereotype of people like that's Vivo Barefoots or Vibrams. Like they eat carnivore, so meat only. They don't touch
sun your nuts.
Sun your nuts.
Don't wear sunscreen.
Can't touch a receipt.
Don't touch receipt paper. Like it's just.
Why can't you touch a receipt?
BPA or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I just saw this on Instagram.
There's BPA in this.
I won't mention the name.
Mark Bell. You can mention the name.
Mark
he doesn't touch
mentioned it like 45 times.
Yeah. Mark Bell. He said don't touch receipts because of BPA. And I said to the boys, I goes, Mark Bell lost it because he had this whole list of things like it's gone down that route.
No, he's just gone down that route a little bit. Before we wrap this up, I just got 2 names. Do you know who Goda is? Greatest of all time athletes. Goda running coaches in America.
He's got a good social media diet.
All right. Yeah. Do you know David Weck?
Oh, I've seen this WEC method the other day. Someone sent it to me.
The shakers.
Well, wasn't I didn't see that one. Fuck, that's even worse. No, it was like run one side for 2 steps and one side.
Yeah, that was Mark Bell.
That's Mark Bell. So Mark Bell was doing that. Yeah. That's what I saw.
Oh, was that the big fella?
Yeah, that's
I saw him come through and he's like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And I looked at it and go, good luck.
I was like, what the fuck
Well,
is
apparently
Mark Bell
it's centering your weight over one foot and then learning to center it the other way. And I don't know.
But then doesn't he like shift it side to side?
Well, that's Weck's whole thing is like bringing the head over the foot, the stance foot,
which doesn't make sense after everything you've just taught us.
And also, like you think about what would physics say about that? And you're shifting weight side to side and side to side.
Yeah, well, you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah. So if it doesn't align with or match with or agree with physics, fuck off.
All right. Fair enough.
We're bound by the laws of physics.
Yeah, we are. No one's beaten physics before. He can't just make up with his own method and just go, cool, now this is better. And I've clocked physics.
It makes so much sense because you literally were getting us not to do that, move side to side, because we want to go forward.
Yeah.
I just want to ask before we wrap up, your personal running goal, like what are you doing with your own running at the moment? Are you planning to race, compete, do anything like that?
The last 2 years, I got roped back into playing hockey, so I didn't run as much as what I had been leading up to that. So I'd been sort of looking at around the 10 to half.
Yep.
I don't feel like I've got the time to actually train for a marathon properly
Yep.
and the way that I'd want to do it. So at the moment now coming back to that 15 to half training
Range.
to do, hopefully something earlier on next year as a race. I would have liked to be a little bit fitter now to do some of the trail races. But yeah, just trying to get back into some more consistency and enjoying actually having 5 or 6 days a week of training and running and actually starting to create my own time and space within my schedule where I'm not putting other people over top of me and actually going, I want to have these days and want to run because I enjoy it. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
So create the space for me to be able to do it and then to be able to then make the decision to do some races.
What's your quickest half and full marathon?
I haven't done a full. Oh, well, I haven't done an official full.
Quickest half?
A half is like 123, I think, at the moment. So it's not that great.
10K?
10K 34.
5K?
That's
triple jump.
Not so great. Actually, you sound like my nephew. I went and visited my nephews on the weekend, and they're doing little athletics. And he's like, "What was your grade 3 long jump?" I'm like, fuck, mate. No, I'm just trying to think. I think 5K is like 1750 at the moment. Again, I don't think I haven't done enough strict running.
Testing,
Yeah. To get down to where I'm probably able to. So that's probably what I should be doing. Because, I just went hockey,
Back to
started
hockey.
running.
That's fair enough.
And then, fuck. 4 years off, not good on the body when you start.
No doubt. My uncle plays
Sunny
a lot
nuts
of it.
and you hit some PBs soon.
Yeah.
Sunny
Don't
nuts.
touch the
Don't
Been
touch
touching
the
those
seats.
receipts, mate. Fuck.
Yeah.
Got those Sigmaflies on. Those Betaflies. Those Betaflies.
That could be the next ones.
No
Sigmafly.
A steps. No A steps.
Obviously, all your links will be down below. But if somebody was looking to get into some of your services, where's the best place to go?
tbrunner.com
Yep.
or just look at Instagram at the Balanced Runner. Like, it's a fair bit of there's lesser content, just more about like some of the athletes or just,
just some of the
highlighting
stuff
some of the stuff that I do.
I find it. I half the time don't know what you're talking about, but I find it interesting the way you work through. Like, this person was doing this, and then you've got like still shots, and it's like that looks so much better, and that, you can see it obviously, and times are improving. So, thanks for coming out, man.
Thanks for having me. It's been good fun.
Yeah, it's been
for
an
someone
awesome
who works by themselves. It's been nice to be around people. No, it's cool.
Well, you can come back whenever you like. I'm sure these boys will probably be in contact anyway.
Take us.
Sounds good.
Yeah, take us through some layering.
Good luck for your comp on the weekend, mate.
Oh, thank you.